Hi, hello, namaste. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Afshan, and I'll be your host for today's event, the Digital Dialogues Season 2, Industry 4.0. Episode 4 is the grand finale of the Digital Dialogues Season 2, and we will be focusing on resilient industry. Digital Dialogues is brought to you by Dell Technologies in partnership with NASSCOM and is powered by Strategic. Can you please sit back and make yourself feel comfortable? We shall be commencing episode 4 in next few minutes. We have an immersive set of industry and technology discussions curated for you over the next hour or so. India's cricketing legend, Kapil Dev, will be with us as always at the end, and we will finally culminate our discussions around the life journey of perhaps India's greatest cricketing legend, his travails, his challenges, and most importantly, his achievements. While the first segment is titled The Digital Dialogues, moderated by Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer, Strategic. Let's hear from him.
Hello and good morning. My name is Arjun Vishwanathan, and I am joined by two very eminent industry experts today in this segment of the Digital Dialogues. Please put your hands together to welcome Mr. Naveen Pilania, Senior General Manager and Head of Operational Excellence, Zydus Cadila. Mr. Pilania, lovely that you could join us today, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arjun, for calling me here.
Thank you, sir. And Amit Saluja, Senior Director and Center Head, NASSCOM Center of Excellence. Amit, pleasure you could join us all over again. Lovely, as always, having you.
Thank you, Arjun, and hello, Mr. Pilania. Good to see you.
So, Mr. Pilania and Naveenji, if I can call you one way or the other. See, I'm going to come to you directly because, see, change is clearly evident in the manufacturing sector, not in the least in the increased clamor and demand for agility, flexibility, innovation, and resilience, of course, adequately aided by technology. Now, when it comes to that, and you at Zydus Cadila have been at the center of a lot of activity and action over the last 6-7 months, in fact, really the first half of the year. How, in your view, are you approaching the whole concept of manufacturing and industrial resilience? Mr. Pilania, sir.
Yeah, the story of manufacturing sector being resilient is as old as the manufacturing sector itself is, right? So we have seen industrial revolutions over the century, and every time there is a challenge bestowed onto the manufacturing sector, they come up with some solutions and they move to the next horizon of seeing the successes, right? So of late, in the last 3-4 decades, the concepts of Lean, TPM, Six Sigma, theory of constraints, these have been the concepts which have been quite supportive to the idea of resilience in the manufacturing sector, right? So most of the organizations, whether it's FMCG or pharmaceuticals or engineering or heavy metal, every industry have taken help of all these concepts over these years to improve their productivity, the cost of operations, improving the quality and the customer experience, right? So this has been a part of the story. And over the last 5 or 6 years, we have started seeing a great deal of transformation happening through digitalization. We talk about the concept of AI, ML, IoT, and all. These are being adopted and are being blended with the concepts of operational excellence to the best of the benefit the organizations can reap from. So, we have this unfortunate situation of the pandemic caused by COVID-19, right? And world over, when it started from the beginning of this year, India also get into the league of the nation of having this pandemic being hit, and the government took certain corrective measures at the beginning of making the country go into lockdown. So many of the sectors, except pharmaceutical and to some extent FMCG, because they come under the essential services, most of the sectors underwent a shutdown at that time, right? So I'm fortunate to be a part of a pharmaceutical industry, and we have been fortunate enough to serve the mankind during these tough times. Zydus Cadila helped the world, I must say, not only restricted to our country, but to many other countries in the world with the supply of the key drug at that time known as hydroxychloroquine sulfate. And then later on, we are into research, and we are racing with the, or working with the other research organizations in the world to have the COVID vaccine coming to existence as early as possible.
Very true. Because Mr. Pilania, with your permission, I'm going to take that to Amit, because Amit, you've been at NASSCOM. You have a very wide vista in terms of your observatory of manufacturing by itself. And you've been with us over the last 3 episodes, and you continue to join us for the grand finale, which is this particular episode. In your estimate, Amit Saluja, how are organizations approaching the whole concept of resilience with agility, with autonomy, and with intelligence? Amit Saluja.
Right. So I think it's a very heavyweight questions that you put in. So I think Naveenji highlighted very clearly the manufacturing industry by design is kind of resilient because so much of the disruptions keeps happening. I think it has you've kind of become used to coming up with some kind of jugaad, at least from the Indian context. That's we come with a solution that kind of helps us manage the crisis. But I think the current crisis which came in, this was a very different kind of crisis that was. I think none of us has seen this kind of thing before. So I think that's where I see a lot of those innovations have started happening. And the one thing that I've seen across the manufacturing industry, that the connection or basically desire to work with these startups and getting the digital technologies to them has increased a lot. Because this is, see, the solutions that were very needed at this point of time were like immediate quick solution, and I don't have much money, I need to kind of get the solution very soon. And that's where the whole connections with these startups and getting to the digital adoption happened. And I have seen a lot of startups came up with their own solution. For example, social distancing solution, different kind of a social distancing solution came in the kind of past few months. Then we are talking about AR or VR based solutions, which are more about the remotely assisting to the supervisors. And in this case, supervisor doesn't have to be at the site, right? And a lot of guidance can happen over the kind of video technology based solutions. So there are multiple solutions which has come up. Worker safety, I think I talked about in the earlier session. Just the remotely monitoring the health of a worker through the different IoT sensors, and then having a alert in place as soon as there is a health changes or any kind of a health issue happens. So I think these are a lot of other examples. I can talk about there was a computer vision based mask detection system that immediately came up. The worker center, and when they are there, so this solution monitors whether the workers are wearing the mask or not. Right? So I think this is all makes us resilient. Startups are a big element, and whenever this kind of a crisis happens where, we have not seen this before, I think the only way to do this is find simple, low cost, easy to use, quick to deploy solutions. And
very interestingly put, because Naveenji, I'm going to come to you, because fundamentally what Amit's been speaking about is the whole concept of how industry by itself is becoming more intelligent. Yeah. Obviously, there's tons of data in the background that is fueling that level of insights and intelligence. How, in your estimate, can the manufacturing organizations of today move to a more intelligent future? What's your view, sir?
Okay, so as far as the technology or the knowledge is concerned, it is it do exist in the universe, right? So it all depends on the organization, how quickly they want to learn and understand what's available at their disposal, right? So the organizations who have already understood this, they have moved ahead in the race, and the rest of the organizations are in a position of catching up, right? So this brings to me, one perspective which we keep towards our approach of doing excellence in everything we do. It's all about communication, right? So we were talking about the social distancing. There was a very popular philosophy which we used to follow all the time, is that if you have to say communicate between people, right? So why to email when you can call, and why to call if you can move into the room of the other person, right? Right. So this philosophy has changed a bit with the social distancing norms in place, right?
It's actually gone the
So
reverse, hasn't it?
yeah. So we have not still moved into the emailing business. Rather, we still are using the best of the technology through the Microsoft Teams has come as a rescuer in this time, right? So every time we need to see face to face, we switch on the video call on this application, and this makes things happen. So the personal connect has not gone, right? So we may not be able to meet each other, but at the same time, at least we can see each other and we can talk to each other,
Very,
right?
very
So
brightly put. Very, very brightly put. Because Amit, I'm going to bring that to you. See, as in a disrupted workforce, a decomposed, well, industry of sorts, how do organizations, especially the manufacturing sector, how should it drive agility and nimble-footedness, if I may be allowed to, yet continue to deliver superior business outcomes? Amit Saluja.
Yeah. So I think for the agility, why we do it is basically, or what the impact that brings up is basically the bringing a transparency in the system so that we are able to take better decisions. That's what agility does. Right? And the way to do it is basically there are two kind of broad pillars that are part of that. One is we should do anything which is more of an incremental approach. When I say incremental approach, don't start with something big and then make a whole plan of it. I mean, we'll have to divide the whole, whole initiative. If you're talking about building a digital roadmap for the organizations, we have to go phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, correct? That should be the approach. And then identify certain things, certain initiatives which brings you immediate benefits, correct? Kind of a low hanging fruits. So that's the other way to kind of do it. Start with something that will give you immediate results, will give you certain level of confidence, and then move forward on the rest of the initiative. So that again builds an agility in there. Then I think we'll also have to do make the manufacturing organizations as the learning organization. So there is
Important.
that's again the important thing. So there is always a learning to do something better, and typically in a manufacturing setup, change management is not easy because these are all very legacy based systems. Not everyone is used to making changes in the system. So that's where also the issue comes up. If you make a change, then the impact of that to the lot of other setup is kind of huge, right? So that's the reason I'm thinking, I think the plan that we need to build in has to be incremental, that shows you something, proves certain objectives, and with that you can move forward with it.
Very interesting. Navinji, because I'm going to bring that and a derivative of a question to you really is, how important a role do you see technology playing in the overall revival and the resilience, agility, the intelligence, uh, actually play out in making organizations, especially the manufacturing sector, far
yeah,
superior to where we are right now? So in essence, I'm actually also asking you as a derivative, what have been the learnings in the last 7 months that have told you or informed you that technology can play a huge role one way or the other? Mr. Pilania.
yeah. So being agile is not a new thing to the manufacturing sector, right? So this is the way to survive and license to operate, right? So we have been doing this legacy approaches of operation excellence based tools and techniques, right? So wherein the strategy is defined at the top, and then it is translated to the strategy deployment exercise to the grassroots level, right? So with my experience, what I can state is that strategies are made, right? So the top management is sitting full time to see what's happening around, what kind of things they need to change, and these changes or the need of those changes becomes a strategy, right? So defining a strategy, I don't think I've seen any challenges over these years. I've been with the industry. The challenge remains how the strategy is rolled out into the grassroots level, right? How it is translated. Now, once we have a good deal of translation done, it is also important that all the teams, right from top to bottom, are focused on the execution and how quickly they can what is being asked by the environment for them, for them to change in their ways of working, right? So the quickly they are able to adapt to the need of the change, better is the result we can have in place. Now, because if we compare pre-digitalization or pre-digitization era with what we are today, there is a sea change in the support system with the people or the customers, internal customers, do have in hand, right? So earlier, what used to happen is that because the entire workflow of translation to execution was manual, there was so much of paperwork, there was so much of communication barriers. These things have been sold a lot by digitization and digitalization tools, right? Now the information and the data is available, as and when you need it. Now, and all the kind of information data, the way it needs to be processed, the kind of deliberation the team should do, instead of they spending their good deal of time in collecting this, they are spending that time now in making use of that information and solving the problems for themselves, right? So this is how the organizations have transformed with the digitalization and digitization coming into existence. Over the last 6 7 months, since we have this pandemic situation in place, I think a great deal of use of digitization and then digitalization tools has been something which has come to the top management
As a
uh,
learning, really,
as a
isn't it?
learning and a realization, right? So earlier, what used to happen is that there have been certain initiatives or use cases which were, given a green signal right away because they understand the business case and the benefits towards it. But after this pandemic situation, there was a better need which was felt by the leadership also. So the approvals and at the same time the implementation plan has curtailed down a lot with respect to the processes which needs to be
And I'm
done
going
to
to
execute
actually,
it.
that's a very powerful point because Amit, I'm going to bring that what Mr. Pilania said to you is that he's clearly articulated and established the fact that the realization and the growing realization of technology is pretty much there for everyone to see. But with it, Amit, also come a huge amount of security risks, potential loss of IP, brand value, and so on and so forth. In your estimate, and speaking from NASSCOM's point of view, what has been your advice to organizations on how to approach a security framework in a fairly uncertain set of realities, really?
Sure. Uh, so the secure, basically, yeah, when these systems are becoming digital, we are talking about so many IoT sensors coming in within an kind of an whole manufacturing plant. Every node creates certain kind of an vulnerability. So that's where we have to kind of ensure that we have enough systems in place. First one is to protect the any kind of an mishappening that can happen. Second thing is if anything that happens, correct, we need to have systems that helps us still kind of running. So basically becoming as a more of an resilient organization. That's what we say. So the plan to ensure there is a effective protection, plus there is a business continuity or the disaster recovery plan also needs to be there. Now, if you talk of security, it can happen because of the three broad things. I mean, people, process, or technology. These are the three main pillars of an organization, and any kind of an loopholes or any kind of an errors in this can always bring a potential security risk. Right? So that's where the whole kind of an concept of providing a systems that ensures the in all these three elements, whether it is people, correct? Many times security risk happens because of the negligence from someone and it is not deliberate, correct? Sometimes deliberation can happen, but most of the times we have seen it is either because of the phishing or because of anything which has happened.
Indeed.
And didn't know. So how can we have the system which protects us from all of these things? I mean, whether it is from people error or whether it is from the technology, basically like we are bringing in a technology in the system that creates so much of an, again, opportunity for the outside world to do something wrong. So what can we do to protect those kind of a thing? And then the process part also, there can always be gaps in our process
Indeed.
that can create vulnerability. So I think we'll have to look at these three pillars and then bring in the systems that that kind of prevents anything.
Very powerful. Very powerfully put. Thank you, Amit. That was indeed very fascinating. But I do have a view on the clock, and I do know, gentlemen, that you've got busy schedules ahead. I'm going to come to you, Mr. Pilania, with the whole concept of, in order to drive excellence, how do you bring people and technology together in a seamless manner that would power operational excellence in its truest form?
Okay, right. Fine. So I'm ready with my thoughts.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, okay. So I think this is something which is a close to heart answer to me, right? So, we see all our employees who are, engaged into driving their operational efficiencies through the use of operational excellence tools and other stuff as our internal customers, right? So if we have kind of solutions in place, right, it is our prime responsibility, being the facilitator of operation excellence, or to that extent the partner who drives the technical improvements in the organization. This is our prime responsibility, that we understand the need of these customers before we throw any solutions to them. A very particular incident which recently happened was, we were talking about an IoT application being drafted for the organization, and everything was done by me and my team. And later conversation were happening with the top leaders in the manufacturing sector, or sorry, in my manufacturing organization. So when I was discussing this with my leader, the manufacturing head, he pointed with me that had we taken an opportunity to understand the needs of our key customers, the operators of the machine and supervisors who deals in with this process day in day out. So that was a big base from our side, that ultimately who will be the users of this technology in future once it is implemented. It's the operator who are operating the machines and the supervisors who are dealing with that process day in day out. We have not taken their inputs on this when we are designing this. So this was immediately put into the notice, and we had extended sessions done with multiple operators and supervisors across our sites, and we took their inputs onto designing of this particular solution, and it did wonders, right? We saw a sea change in the way we were designing it and the way the end user wanted that, right? And that has helped not only in designing it properly, but at the same time getting a complete buy-in about that concept. Usually what happens into my role, what I've seen is that a concept is launched, right? And a great deal of efforts always is poured in educating, training people, making them aware, and getting their buy-in so as to drive the change. Now, this change is driven right from the beginning, right? At the grassroots level, we had this discussion, we took their inputs, and then we designed it. Now, whatever we have designed is something which the owner means the person who is using it feels that this is something designed by himself. So there is a great deal of ownership.
The fostering of collaboration as a sense of ownership. Yeah, I completely agree. But I do have a view on the clock, gentlemen. I'm going to sneak in one last question each. Amit Saluja, I come to you first. One essential point of guidance for this wonderful audience that's tuning in today on how they should approach what clearly is a very, very bright future with the leveraging of technology.
So with the technology needs to be leveraged, correct? There is no kind of a choice. We have been talking about it. So I think and I said this earlier, we have to build a technology roadmap. We have to think of our long-term objectives, where we want to take our organization to the next level. And for that, how technology can help. And within that, we'll have to really prioritize something which is easy to implement and can be done quickly. The low cost needs to be done first. Then the rest of the larger level initiative needs to follow up. And second thing on this, I will say is, we need to have that, the teams identified, of the cross-functional teams identified in the organization that actually leads this charter, correct? So Not one department can do it. Everyone has to come together.
Collaborate.
And the third point, which is I think the most important point of it, I mean, what I will say is we are very good in identifying what to do. And then in fact, I mean, we implement a lot of solutions also. But how much of that solution is getting used in the organization is something, I mean, I still say we are kind of an
Indeed,
we are kind of
indeed,
an
very, very
well
true.
of that. So that adoption of the technology, making sure that our employees and all our organization better understand why we are implementing these solutions and how to use this solution, or how to use the solution is the most
Is the
important
most
part.
important.
So that
Thank you
awareness has
so
to be
much. Thank you
Can
so
I
much, Amit. Yes, sir, please.
can I add 2 cents to this? This is also very important that Amit, taking you from the third perspective, I would like to build further thoughts on it. Right, awareness of the end user on the concepts is also very important. Right, so once we have, I'm again, reiterating that fact. We design everything, right, and we implement it. This is a kind of forcing down it to the throat, down to the throat of the people, without understanding whether they need it or
They
not.
need it
Right?
or not.
Yeah. So this is one point. Another thing is that once an end user is say aware of what kind of technology do exist and what is the importance of everything we do. Say, I was talking to I was talking to the CEO of my organization about how much the end user understands the need of data security once he is buying a machine or buying a new technology, right? So another one, I usually find people who are completely not having that kind of awareness which I am aware of, right? So then it becomes my responsibility that all the key people who are dealing with the purchase of a new machine or a new technology, they are equally aware of all these data security requirements. So as once they are planning it out or the capex is being designed, they take that everything into consideration. And I'm
Indeed.
sure, what it iterated that is that, when I did this with a couple of such users, he found, promising results, right? Now
Outstanding.
there was a sea change in the way that they used to think earlier and now. And another thing which was done is that when a URS is signed, now the CTO is also into the loop of designing the URS. So this solves a lot of issues pertaining to the data security and the related.
Outstandingly put. No, thank you very much, sir. But that pretty much is what we have time for in this segment. Though, Mr. Pilani, I'm going to come to you with one last very, very important question. A question that not only the nation or the country, but the whole world wants to know. When is the vaccine expected to come, sir?
So everything is available on the internet. So I really know only that stuff which the internet is right now.
That was very, very
Giving the
smartly put.
information on.
Thank you, sir. I tried to put you in a spot there. But Mr. Pilania, Amit Saluja, it has been nothing short of a delight having this fascinating conversation with you. Thank you so much for making out time from your busy schedules.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Pleasure
Thank
being
you.
here.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Naveen Pilania and Amit Saluja in conversation with me. Stay tuned. We'll be back with the next segment in just a moment.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Please stay tuned. Our next segment is titled Strategy in Motion and will be moderated again by Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer, Strategic. Over to you, sir.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan. And as we move along in this episode of the Digital Dialogues, I'm in conversation with Dhaval Pandya, CIO and CTO, JSW Paints. Dhaval, welcome. We are delighted that you could be here with us. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Arjun. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And for the audience, to set the context, as manufacturing organizations now take a completely new approach to production, with products being created, identified, located, and moved by alternative routes as needed in reinvented supply chains, especially, the need for resilient security systems and processes therefore become paramount. Together, the challenges of the industrial internet escalate the threat of damage from cyber attacks that manipulate processing and workflow systems. These come with disruptions that last much longer and come at what is evidently enormous cost. Uh, Dhaval, it's a very interesting juncture that we are at today. You're at the thick of all the action at JSW Paints because you're working with machines at one end, with technology at the other end, human capital at the altogether different set aside of the pyramid. The whole concept of, or rather, let me fashion it in this way. What is your perspective on how you are looking towards fashioning agile, intelligent, and autonomous manufacturing organizations by themselves? What's your perspective, Dhaval Pandya?
So, we are a paints manufacturer, Arjun, and the primary businesses are twofold. One is the industrial business, and the other is the decorative business. And the industrial is a B2B part of things, and the decorative is the B2C part of things. And that's where most of the action actually tends to be because it's consumer oriented.
Indeed.
And while we are a part of a group, we are a startup within the group, and we try to think and believe and treat ourselves like a startup. And the thrust has always been around creating differentiators, not creating differentiators for the namesake of creating differentiators, but differentiators that add value. And having said that, if you were in today's age move towards creation of value, you would have to embrace some of the newer levers of technology, which give you the agility that you were just speaking about. So, for example, it's no longer a disconnected marketing, a disconnected operations, a disconnected sales, a disconnected supply chain. It's all like you rightly mentioned. It's interwoven. And today, the KPIs also are being tracked and being changed to basically identify if it is actually interwoven or not. So, for example, today we are talking about things like if I were to run a particular campaign in a particular geography of India, say in the Karnataka market, how is it going to impact my production variance, or how is it going to impact my operations, and how is it going to impact my yield and throughput or per unit electricity consumption back in the factory. And this would not be possible if it's not interwoven, and at the same time it is not autonomous. Making it interwoven will give you the capability to identify, but making it autonomous is something that will make you give you the ability to rectify or do the course correction. So yes, it's very much on the cards, and increasingly industries across domains are moving towards it, and we are no different. While it's a vision, we are taking our steps towards it.
Very, very impactfully made, because I did pick up a few important points that you made. One was the startup mindset, clearly, which is what is helping you drive more agility. The second one was interwoven and, of course, new KPIs. When I kind of bunch these together, Dhaval, it also brings me to an important point. Today, more than ever before, the value of data towards making manufacturing more intelligent and really progressing towards a different future of sorts is at a heightened level. In your view, how would you advise organizations really to look at this whole, the concept of data and its practical use towards making manufacturing and industry really much, much more resilient as we move along?
So like again I mentioned, to be able to achieve the agility or the autonomous behavior of operations that we are talking about, you need a fair deal of flexibility. And with flexibility comes risk. You know, the tighter the control, the better the output, the better the resilience, the looser the control, still the throughput may be higher, but you are not necessarily a resilient organization, in which case. So it always helps to put things in perspective, to say that okay, how much is too much.
How much
So
is too much?
for example, and that's where I think stats and numbers play a huge role. So there was recently a research by the polymer industry, and it was very well published and appreciated across industries, which says that on an average, any attack or compromise is basically the amount of data that it gets compromised is close to 25,000 records. This is per attack, and the estimated value or business value, be it in terms of intellectual property business, or it may be in terms of lost business, it may be in terms of threat, in terms of compromising or causing harm to life or limb, or in terms of it could be sheerly the downtime. All this put together, the estimated value of a damage per record was close to 150 USD on an average. So if you put things in perspective, you're talking about roughly a 30 crore exposure per per compromise.
Indeed.
And
Indeed.
based on the industry that you are in, if for example, like we tend to be in the paints industry, which is chemicals oriented, and a lot of work goes behind creating those formulations, which will help you impart paint the particular property, say in terms of the spread, or in terms of the stickiness, or in terms of viscosity, shine, gleam, or today we are talking about, say, antibacterial paints, given the current situation.
True,
Right?
true.
A lot of investment, effort, and brain goes behind creating those formulations. Now, if God forbid, the compromise would tend to be in that area, the damage would be much higher than 150 USD per record.
Indeed so. Indeed so.
Right? So it could basically, and for a startup, like we said, every buck counts. So every punch in the face pushes us back so much. So given this, there is absolutely no doubt that the threat is real, and it needs to be dealt with, and the resilience needs to be a part of the design itself, rather than a post facto thought as to, okay, now we have this ready, and now
Indeed.
let's try make this resilient. That's when it becomes an exercise of square pegs and round holes. It has to be a well thought out strategy, easier said than done, especially when it comes to operational technology. Because information technology, as far as security is concerned, is fairly mature, but with Industry 4.0, the operational technology is more vulnerable than ever.
Indeed. Indeed. So, which brings me to an important question, therefore, Dhaval, and I'm sure the audience is also extremely keen to understand your guidance of how do you see the challenges of enabling a comprehensive security framework or a security paradigm, therefore, in the background of smart factories and, I mean, if you look at it contextually, a renewed manufacturing vigor as well as rigor as we move into revival phase?
So I come from a consulting background, Arjun, and I have my love for frameworks. Okay, and I think that there is no problem that a framework can't help you tackle. So again, coming to your question, how do we? What is the approach that we should take? Possibly, or what could be the guiding factor? So I think the answer lies in the very principles of Industry 4.0. If you talk about the four basic principles of Industry 4.0, you're talking about interoperability, you're talking about technical assistance, you're talking about transparency, and you're talking about decentralization of decisions. Right now, in order to enable each of these, say, let's take one at a time. If you talk about transparency in information, what it basically means is that the system has to be intelligent enough to mimic the physical world and take the decision in the digital world, which means that a lot of information from the physical world has to be made available in the digital world, or within the realms of the operational technology.
Indeed. True that.
Right? So then when you're defining the data architecture as to how this information is going to be made available, that's when you need to put on shed the OT cap and possibly wear the IT cap to say that, okay, now this is my data, these are my plug points within which the sockets are going to plug in. Okay, do I need to do an RSA token? Do I need to do, say, SAML? Do I need to install certificates? Do I need to restrict to user-based authentication? And very plain and simply about the basic principles of security apply. Access, authorization, authentication. Please concentrate on these three. For any given scenario, what is the means of access to be provided? What is the authentication to be done? And what is the authorization to be provided to the stakeholder who is accessing it? In this case, the stakeholder happens to be a machine.
Indeed.
Right? So just like you and I would access my internal information technology, we are authenticated. We are given certain authorizations. The same has to apply. Very frequently, what happens is that with operational technology, people tend to tread lightly. They do not look at, for example, is my operating system at the right level of patch? Because operational technology by definition and by design operates in a very construed and a defined manner. It is limited to that particular piece of equipment. For example, if you're talking about a SCADA or a L2 system, what happens is that I focus on making that equipment work well, and I leave the plug open.
fascinating, really, when you kind of articulate it in that manner, because I'm sure we're all keen to know, Dhaval, given your vast experience, both in the consulting space as well as now with your hands and, in fact, elbows dirty in technology, what is the anatomy of a future cyber attack in manufacturing going to look like? In your estimate, perhaps. And therefore, how can organizations future-proof uh, their machines, their people, and their systems and processes?
Uh, so with all modesty, I'm not sure whether we can future-proof Arjun, but because the very fact or the law of nature is that the police is always chasing the thief, right? So thief tends to be 2 steps ahead of the police
Indeed.
all the time, right?
Indeed.
Uh, but what would you do if for example, if you think that you can be robbed? The basic thing you need to do is you need to shut your door, right? If you leave the door open and then think that okay, I will not be robbed, that's wishful thinking. So there is a breed of systems coming in within the networking realm, Arjun, which are AI enabled, which means that they have the inspection capabilities or the DPI capabilities, which can predict an attack. That is as far as the system part of it, and the same technologies are now being rolled out by certain major providers on the operational front as well, where they are trying to make it resilient to understand, okay, is a data request packet coming to me, is it an authenticate one or not, is it from the source from which it is expected or not, correct? And at the same time, the basic principle of air gapping the operational technology from the inspection from the information technology has proven to be a very good method. While it may create
Approach.
certain, yeah, it may create certain challenges in terms of achieving the interwoven aspect which you were talking about. It may be a little hampered, but it is not completely impaired. And then again it comes to, you have to decide as to what is the security posture that you are willing to adopt. For example, can I accept a drop in my system reaction if my security is a notch higher,
Indeed.
right? So the anatomy, the simple answer to that would be, you have to define the security posture that you want to take, whether you want to be a L1, whether you want to be a L2, whether you
L2.
want to be L3, or whether you want to be on par with the information technology security posture at your end. And the simple guiding factor to that will be, what is the value that you peg to the data that you are guarding.
Indeed.
It's as simple as, for example, if you were to buy a life insurance policy, what premium do you think is worth your life?
Very true. Very
Right.
true.
So definitely, given the future scenarios, as the systems are becoming more intelligent, the attacks are becoming more intelligent.
Also equally
Equally,
intelligent.
if not more, equally intelligent. And so and that's how I think some of the capabilities, especially in the artificial intelligence space, can create a huge difference in terms of the way we are defending our systems.
But then in the same breath, Dhaval, I must ask you, the whole concepts of zero trust are equally or commensurately important, aren't they? Or do you differ?
Like I said, it's again a question of how much is too much, Arjun.
How
Because
much is too much?
right, if you talk about zero trust, what is it that you are sacrificing, or what is it that, because if you were to invest in a digital technology, it will give you some visible output.
Yes, it will.
But if you invest in security, there is no visible output. It is only fortifying yourself further. So it's like again coming back to the premium, right? What is it that you think is it worth? So zero trust, it's an ideal state, I would say, Arjun. I'm not sure most business scenarios will be able to operate seamlessly in a zero trust scenario.
Very interesting. And therefore, because I do come to, I do have a view on the clock, Dhaval. I know you've got a hard stop. Now, I'm going to sneak in a couple of very important questions. In your estimate, how should organizations approach the very fundamental concept of the future of trust? 3 points of essential guidance that you would like to give our wonderful audience today that's listening into us. Senior folks, how would you inspire them to move their trajectories towards the future of trust?
Access, authorization, authentication. There is absolutely no fourth parameter that you need to look at when you're talking about security, right? Evaluate every single request in the same light. Now, let me take an example. If you have an operational technology installed, which is, for example, not working on a particular day, and your partner is not on site, he needs to remotely log into the system. What do? You open up your network to him. Are you ensuring that still it is being opened up to the extent possible, or is it okay, my business is down, my operations are impacted, I need to first arrest the problem, let me just open it up? And having done that, you know, there is an interesting fact that there have been attacks planned through ports of printers, right, to get into the operational ring fence, so to say. Now there is a printer on the shop floor which is basically meant to print your batch cards, which the operational guy will, you know, take in his hand, go around the equipment, he will follow the instructions and he'll operate the particular thing. Now this particular printer, it had a port open, and that helped the attackers to get into the system, and they got a control of the system of a particular piece of equipment which is life threatening if not operated correctly, right? That is the risk that we are talking about here. Why should that port on the printer be open? Did we do security audits on the shop floor?
Indeed.
We do
Very
all the
important,
audits,
isn't
for
it?
example, in the information technology world. So I think a very important aspect of doing it is that you have two teams within the IT and OT landscape. One is meant to build the systems, and one is meant to break the systems. That is the only way I think you can do it. And the second part, while you may not have capabilities within the company, there are enough and more capabilities available outside through partners, through channel partners. You know, quite a few that we have also been associated with, which only specialize in telling you where your flaws are. Right. Again, as far as identifying flaws, we do a VAPT for every mobile application that we've sent into
Yeah.
the into the on the app store. But do we do a VAPT, for example, for my piece of equipment on the shop floor?
Indeed, very, very important, isn't it? But that
Because
was brilliant.
you can only correct what's known, and you can only correct what's measured, right? Unless and until I know my inventory of issues, there is no way I'm going to be able to do it.
There's no possibility. But that pretty much is what we have time for. That's been fascinating as a conversation, Dhaval. One last question. The last 6-7 months have, well, truly been trying for all of us. Your one single biggest learning, personal, professional, could be anything. What's been your single biggest learning in this last 7 months?
So my learning is that every single organization that thought that work from home doesn't work for them, trust me, it does. So and we have been working for, but that aside, there is a lot of focus being given on workforce productivity, especially for staff working from home, and with that comes in the aspect of endpoint security as well. That gets coupled. So, for example, we are looking very strongly now at, for example, MDM solutions, at device endpoint security solutions, encryption and authentication, remote access over VPN or RDPs, VDIs, etc. So, my mantra would be that I think this situation is here to stay. I don't see it going away, and it's only I think prudent to learn to live with it. And for that, a salute to all my CIO friends who are making this happen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Dhaval Pandya, CIO and CDO, GSW Paints. Dhaval, it has been nothing short of fascinating speaking with you, like it always has been. Thank you so very much for joining us today. It was lovely indeed.
You're most welcome, Arjun. The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you. And to the audience, stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment. Hello and welcome back. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, and I will now be in conversation with Sudipto Shekhar Ghosh, Director Device Marketing, Microsoft. Sudipto, welcome. Delighted you could join us today.
Thank you, Arjun. It's a pleasure.
And Ashish Chalke, Senior Solutions Engineer, VMware. Ashish, wonderful you could be with us today.
Thank you, Arjun. Great to be here.
Gentlemen, I'm going to come directly to you. Sudipto, with your permission, I will come to you. See, the whole concept of cyber resilience by itself in the Industry 4.0 concept is fascinating by itself. Now, all the more so given the production economies in countries such as India. In your view, how important is cyber resilience in the Industry 4.0 concept? And from your perspective at Microsoft, how are you approaching that entire framework, if I may?
Thanks for the question. So I think before I go to cyber resilience, I should say it's resilience all over, right? As an individual, as a family, as a community, all of us, and then moving to the organization. So because of this pandemic, there's none who is not impacted by this. So how we have taken it as Microsoft is, we believe it is tech intensity that will make the difference. And again, I would borrow Satya's words over here, and where he says that tech intensity. What is tech intensity? Tech intensity is basically about adopting the latest technologies. It is just not that. It is how do you integrate that into your organization? That's point number one. Point number two, which is very critical, especially for a country like ours, which is build the digital capability. We are seeing this across all, not only organizations, across strata, how people are adopting to digital at this moment, but how do you ensure that every tier of the organization is doing that? And the third, which is actually a very important aspect from a business perspective, is how do you embed trust into all of this? Trust internally, trust externally, both ways. Because technology today, it's widely available, but unless and until it is trustworthy, the building of resilience might not be that easy. So I'll put it in these three words.
Very interesting, because Ashish, I'm going to bring that to you. Sudipta made a very interesting point about the whole concept of embedding it in the very fabric of industry. At VMware, how are you kind of progressing on this fairly complex journey, really, and therefore enabling organizations to be more resilient, and not just cyber resilient, but be more resilient, of course, from the perspective of security for sure?
Yes. So, resiliency maps directly with availability, and availability is one of the, I'd say, core pillars of security, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, if you look at, the VMware solution stack as such, we have always focused on being highly available always, right? Be it in virtual systems, be it managing systems, right? It has always been focused on giving that piece of resiliency within the organization. Now, if you map that back to, let's say, a production or a manufacturing organization, that is Industry 4.0, right? These are, I'd say, systems that have to be highly resilient. You cannot just go ahead and reboot a manufacturing system, right? That is something that is not possible. And this is where resiliency really comes into impact. Even a minute's downtime would have a very large cascading impact across the whole production flow, right? And this is primarily something that VMware has been focusing on, bringing in the management systems, the resiliency of the systems, but also the resiliency of the data that has been stored in those systems as well, right? How do we ensure that the data is highly available? How do we ensure that there are ways of restoring data in case of a disaster recovery, or in case of certain aspects at the manufacturing place? So this is something that VMware has been focusing since the day of inception, and this has primarily been, I'd say, one of the core focuses for Dell Technologies and VMware as a company.
Very well put, actually. Very powerful statements, because I'm going to come to a very important question, one that merits serious discussion. And Sudipta, I'm going to come to you. And on behalf of the audience, perhaps I would like to ask you how you individually, and of course at Microsoft, are approaching the whole concept of the future of trust being embedded within the fabrics or the digital fabrics of industry, especially manufacturing sector by itself. How are you kind of approaching it?
There are, taking a step back, the future, we believe the future of trust is going to be pegged around three vectors, right? These vectors are about not just about your technology that you offer, but overall as a corporation, how do you engage? So those vectors that I would trust on is inclusiveness. That means how inclusive is your technology, not only for a certain set of people, but how wide you can be. Second is, how does it take care of the fundamental rights of humans? And the third is very interesting for a technology company to state, but how sustainable and how we are committed to this planet. So we've seen what we've gone through. So these are the three vectors under which we believe trust is going to be established. So these are the foundations. When we do that, it's about doing right in every aspect. So it's not just about identity management. It's not about just about protection and security. It's not about just endpoint and on the cloud, but it is this holistic thing. I remember in one of the earlier webinars with you, I had this chat that how important that security paradigm is, because it is no more a device-led security. It is me at the center, and it is across all platforms and paradigms. So we would put across that trust. Actually, the future of trust is going to line on those areas. That's what.
Very interesting. Because Ashish, I'm going to bring that exactly to you with the derivative, of course, which is that at VMware, what is your essential guidance to organizations that are looking to transform, that are looking to now come through with a revival of their own after the first half of the year and the lessons that we've learned? So my question to you really is, what has the first half of this year really taught you in terms of how you should approach the whole concept of innovation to help manufacturing as a sector move towards revival and, of course, sustainable growth? Ashish Chalke.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we have seen, is the resilience of people, right? You need people to be able to connect to those systems and be able to work, right? And work safely. Security is all about safety, right? How do we enable people to work safely? How do we enable them to gain access to their systems? That is one of the core things, that the industry has to look at. Traditionally, if you look at manufacturing plants, or the systems were not connected. With Industry 4.0, that is one of the core factors where you're looking at connecting those systems, right? Now, these are systems that were traditionally not meant for connection. They were meant more for function rather than security, right? So one of the things that organizations have had to learn is how do we enable the employees to securely access them, but ensure that they're not been accessed by some third party or somebody who's not really supposed to do that, right? So that has been one of the core learnings in the first half, that people, the COVID situation was something that people had to scramble for a lot of times to kind of provision that access. But now, it has been fairly, I would say, stable, and in a particular process where you kind of allow the employee to gain direct access, right, to the system, secure access, and ensure that those systems are monitored for what they are supposed to be doing, right? That is, I'd say, one of the core things around security.
Very interesting. So, Sudipto, if that were to be really the case, and beg your pardon, my question to you, therefore, also is, how at Microsoft are you approaching the whole concept of innovation? Yet ensuring that manufacturing organizations, predominantly and by and large industry, is also not hindered in flexibility and in driving the spirit of innovation by itself. What can we look forward to in the future?
Before that, a step back, and I love the way Ashish actually put it. Microsoft sees this pandemic as the three phases of it. We're currently going through a response phase, immediately jump into recovery phase, whatever those second wave, third wave, and all of that. The third one, which will be the most important one, is the reimagine phase. That how do you reimagine the way you conduct your business? You conduct your business models altogether. How do you conduct with your employees, with your customers? So the first and foremost, and we can talk about challenges, what we're going through. In fact, the other day somebody said something very interesting, that had this pandemic not been there, we wouldn't have got the experience of experimenting what is remote work. This by far was the largest experience of remote work across the globe or for any number of years, right? It wouldn't have happened. So it's now there. So the first and foremost thing is you need something where you can not just communicate, not just collaborate, but entirely a 360-degree work experience. And I might sound like a sales and a marketing person, but what we bring with Microsoft Teams is that how does that becomes the fundamental of your employee engagement, your customer outreach, it's basically the platform for your transformation. So those are just to give you one. And the other part which will continue will be, and I believe this is especially in the hybrid spaces, how do you build hybrid computing infrastructure capabilities with corporations, and especially with large corporations and even in small businesses? How do you build that up so that the future is much more predictable, because currently it is going through that.
Outstanding. Because Ashish, my similar question to you is, for the audience that's tuning in today, what is your guidance at VMware? How are you enabling them to reimagine, like Sudipto rightly said, reimagine traditional concepts and move ahead with far, far more boldness, resilience, and enthusiasm?
Okay. So I think, I'll Sudhir, give a very good point around, enabling people and collaboration. Now, if you look at from an industry perspective, right, there are two things. One is the people connecting to those systems and using those systems, right? We need to ensure that they have the right and proper access. They can do that on any personal device. The pandemic has taught us that we need to be more flexible, right? People may connect from a personal device, they may connect from a home device, right? And that necessarily will not have the security standards of the organization itself. So we need to provision them that access, that secure access to those systems, right? And that is where, one of the things that VMware does well is virtualization. So Horizon VDI has been, I'd say, one of our flagships of provisioning access, secure access to the end users. The other flip side from that is the systems itself from the manufacturing perspective, right? Like I said, these systems have not been traditionally architected for security. They were architected primarily from function perspective, right? So we need to take a different approach to security on the systems, not like a typical server infrastructure or data center infrastructure, but rather more of, these are single function systems a lot of times. Can we lock them down? Can we freeze them down to those particular functions? To systems that cannot be locked down, cannot be functioned on, can we identify, for example, what are the communication patterns? Who do they need access to, and restrict them specifically to that, right? Rather, when you think of from a traditional way of that we have been doing security from the typical IT side of things, we always think of block the bad, or block the threat, but allow everything else. Whereas from the OT side, the operational technology side, we need to look at allow only what is needed and block everything else. That is exactly what we need to focus on.
Very, very nice. But I do have a view on the clock, gentlemen, and I know you have busy schedules. One of one very important question. Sudeep Shekhar Ghosh, I come to you. Two pieces of most essential guidance you would like to pass on to our wonderful audience today, and including to folks like me, given the experiences of the past and therefore the learnings.
Sure. One is obviously I'll reiterate the tech intensity paradigm. That is very critical. That how do you build the capability, and how do you adopt more faster and bring the aspect of trust. And secondly, our mission statement, and I would also take the opportunity to state that, is to empower every individual and organization on this planet to achieve more.
No.
It's very important that the work that we do, whatever product, whatever service we provide, is actually solving a problem for somebody for which there is no other solution, right? So it comes with deep empathy, and there is no better time than now to actually prove it. Any company, any organization, any scale, any size.
Outstanding. That was fascinating. Ashish, same question to you. Two pieces of very, very essential guidance that you'd like to pass on to our audience today.
I would say be tech forward. Don't be afraid of adopting technology just for security concerns. Rather, look at enabling the technology with the proper security mindset, right? So traditional security has always been the I'd say the pillar of no, right? So rather than, we should bring that to pillar of yes. Enable the business, and then we need to think around that, right? That would be one of the first things, and we need to work around those challenges, right? We cannot just say we cannot connect. That is a strict no, right? That is one of the things. Be tech forward. The other is, think and design security from a safety perspective. We design from a manufacturing floor perspective as well. We design a lot of the physical security aspects from a safety perspective as well. That is the same concept has to be used from a cyber perspective as well. When you're designing cyber security, that has to be thought of people first, safety first. Right? That is what I think.
Outstanding. But gentlemen, thank you. That's pretty much what we have time for in this segment. It's been nothing short of fascinating speaking to you. Sudipto, Ashish, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ashish. And thank you, Arjun.
Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you. And to the audience, folks, stay tuned. We'll be back with the next segment in a jiffy.
Hi everyone, I'm sure you all have enjoyed the digital dialogues thus far, focusing on diverse business and technology aspects of Industry 4.0. Well, now comes the concluding but very exciting part of this episode, a session titled In Focus. I'm extremely delighted, and indeed it's my pleasure to introduce the host and anchor of In Focus, Mr. Sri Krishna Venkataraman, Partner Marketing Manager, Dell Technologies India. Over to you, Sri Krishna, for In Focus.
Good morning, friends, and welcome back to the grand finale of In Focus with Kapil Dev. Our discussions today will range across not just the man and the legend, but also his views on his peers, his career, and life after cricket. Comparing yourself to your peers at that time, Kapil, maybe Ian Botham or Richard Hadley, all of you had a fairly long career, 16 to 17 years, 18 years. Uh, you know, and we don't see such long careers in nowadays. I mean, it might be because of impatience, or it may be because of a lot of talent that are coming up, wherein selectors want to give, or people want to give new people a lot more opportunity. But what is the learning that you had over having such a long career, and uh, how important is it to adapt to time and change?
I think the adaptation is the biggest thing in this world. Uh, if somebody say, if you don't adapt to the right time at the right place, you will be in a difficult situation. So I think we were lucky. We used to play 6 months in a year. These cricketer today's, they play almost 10 months in a year. So your body can only work that much. If I give you example about a car, the car, if you make a car run 24 hours a day, it's going to break down more often. And we used to get time to prepare ourselves and rest to our body. And that's what it happened. And second, I would agree and disagree. I would say somebody like Dhoni played for 16 years, Harbhajan played, Yuvraj played, Virender Sehwag played, Sachin played. He played like nobody ever played in this world. Rahul Dravid, all this great cricketer, when they come out, they can last, they can adapt to the situation and play much longer. And that's what it happened most. Even the new talent come, you can say only a great talent will remain there for a longer period if he's physically fit. And like Virat Kohli now, you see, we think he can play another at least 5 to 6 years if he can keep himself fit. So it will be a 15 to 20 years, and that's what the maximum is, 15 years. Mediocre can be 6, 7 years. Decent is 10, 12 years. That's how, in cricketing terms, we can talk.
Okay, so you've spoken about adaptation, right? If I want to pick your career as an example, you started off when you started off your career, your primary stock ball was an outswinger, and you were known for your outswinger. But with your career, you adapted and you developed the ball that straightens off the pitch, or even in swings. How easy is it to adapt? Because when you're comfortable with something, you tend to stick to your comfortable zone, right? So how easy was it to adapt?
I think if you are looking for comfort, then you can't reach on top. You start looking comfort. I think I used to want to learn every day new thing. That's till today. That's my motto of my life is I like to learn, because when you say you know everything, that's the time have come, you can kicked out from whichever place you are. Why they keep on changing CEO of a company? Because they want a new person to come out with a more determination and prove I can do a better job than previous one. And that's what it happened. So change is very good, but with the change, if you can learn and keep on performing, you will be always valued. But where you have taken the back seat and start compromising, I think the time has come to go. In cricket, we say the people who sit on the front chair, it's a 15 or 16 players. For a front, 16 senior players sit at the back, another 8 players, 16 players there. So we always say, the person who come to the chair, when can we kick him out and we can take that place? So that's the change. The time and the people who are pushing you from the back will determine the change should be there.
Okay, sir. Coming back to your peers, Kapil, during your playing days, Ian Botham, Richard Hadley, Imran Khan, were your peers, and you were, constantly compared, not as much as what comparison happens today, but whatever used to happen at that point in time. Do you think, or should I put it the other way around? Who do you think was the best all-rounder amongst yourself?
Uh, among ourselves, everybody has a strength. Understand that it's not, you can say if you compare with Gary Sobel, we are all nothing in front of him. But when you talk about among our four self, I often said that I thought Botham had more ability similar to batting and bowling. He can win the matches. And I think Richard Hadley was a computerized bowler. Every time same and same. He put more good delivery at one spot than any other fast bowlers. And Imran Khan was, I think, he wasn't that talented, but he was among us, was the hardest a person to work hard on the field. And I think he was a great leader to handle a Pakistani a team itself a challenge. And you lead with the example. That's what he did. So he was a great captain. And I always said, I think I was a better athlete if I put all 3-4 together. So my athleticism was better. So everybody has a few points to, we can say they were better. But on given day, all 4 was good enough.
Get it, sir. You brought out the aspect of a leader here. Going back to, rewinding your career, 2 things that probably defines you as a leader is one, the 83 World Cup, and probably when you were the vice captain, if I'm not wrong, during the 85 World Championship of Cricket, when Sunil Gavaskar was a leader. As a leader, typically, what was the message that you wanted to give to your team?
I think you have to set example. Mostly when you become a leader, you start expecting other people to perform in corporate world also. I mean that when you become a corporate head or CEO, then you give orders. I think the difference between is giving order and trying to make sure you can handle and work that give you the strength. To me, I always said, you have to give respect to the team when you do well. When you're not doing well, you should stand in front of your team and say, I think I let down the team. I think most of the time in corporate world, CEO want to do everything. No, you cannot perform without your team. And when the time comes, you have to give respect to your team more than you should take a respect for yourself.
Absolutely golden words, sir. Now, Kapil, coming to the almost towards the end part of our conversation here. 16-year career, you're the first person or the only person.
Say it again.
Yep.
Say it again.
No. So it paused. So I also paused. So coming to the last part of our conversation, Kapil, you had a long career, like I mentioned, 16 years. You're the only person to have the double of 400 wickets and 4,000 runs. You won the Cricket World Cup for India. You were the captain of the Indian cricket team. For us, you have achieved almost everything in your career that you could have. But looking back at your career, what 2 things? First thing is, are you satisfied with your achievements? And second is, what is your learning that you would like to pass on to future generations?
Am I satisfied? Billions of people want to play in India, and you play for your country and lead your country. If I'm not satisfied, then I'm a negative person. I'm a positive person. I talked to a very great person of India. I asked him once, Bachchan Saab, आपकी जो जिंदगी है, आप इसको कैसे लेते हो? So he said, जिंदगी संघर्ष है. I said, मेरे को अजीब लगा और मैंने उनसे दोबारा पूछा, संघर्ष तो तब होता अगर आप अमिताभ बच्चन ना बन पाते, या दुनिया में या इंडिया में कोई ऐसा इंसान नहीं who don't want to be in your shoes. And you said, संघर्ष है, struggle है, struggle तब होती है if you can't achieve your goal. But when you achieve your goal, it's not a struggle, it's a journey. इतना फर्क है सिर्फ स्ट्रगल में और अचीविंग में. तो मैं ये I feel it's very important. I will never say I struggled in my life. I enjoyed my life, and it was learning during that journey. If I'm sitting and talking to you over the period of time, I only learn. I never say I know everything. I just want to learn from you also, learn from your group also. Because when you talk to this level, you start learning from other people also.
Absolutely, sir. The last question, Kapil. You have authored 4 books. Not many of, not a lot of audience know that you're an author. And your last book was on spirituality, if I'm not mistaken. So, what is spirituality for you?
No, I think that was the first book. First book. When you are not smart enough in your head, you're learning. People say, let's write. That was a mistake. It's not a book is written because you are 20 odd years old. You don't know the world. You're just pushing what people feed you in your head and it goes. But when you reach 40, you come to know about yourself. Sometimes people come to know themselves at the age of 20 also. Good and bad or arrogant or simplicity, you come to know with the age of, with your time. So I felt that wasn't me. It was a person who was writing with me. That was his thought also. And the straight from the heart, I did the last book, which was what I feel about that. But that's also 15, 20 years back. Because every age you keep on changing. If I have to write today about God and all those things, I only said, you are God within yourself. Try to recognize yourself. And good and bad within you. Just recognize yourself. That's what I believe today.
Thanks, Kapil. It was an absolute pleasure having you with us. I'm sure the audience has also enjoyed this conversation. What is any last thoughts, Kapil, that you would want to share with the audience, a message or learning through your experience? Anything?
Only one thing I always say is when I goes to university and college is different. And when I talk to corporate world, I only say take a pride wherever you are working. And that is very, very important. 2 type of people. One, they come to the office 9:30, 10 o'clock. I have to go to the office 5 o'clock. Before the 5 o'clock, they want to run out of the office. And second person is not looking the watch. Second person is looking how I enjoy the day, what I work, I have done that. On cricket field, I'll give you a small example. When we used to train or practice, anybody used to ask me, Paji, how long we are practicing? I used to say his time has come, because his time is to go from the ground. You practice till you enjoy. Don't look for the watches. Look here, how much hard work and time you enjoyed. When you are enjoying, you're not looking for the watch. When you are 18 years old, when you are in love, you don't look for the watch. You like to enjoy more and more. If you can do 50% of that in your work, I think you are successful. That's the message for everybody.
Absolutely golden words, Kapil. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful participation. We are immensely happy that we could bring this episode of the Digital Dialogues Season 2 Industry 4.0. The Digital Dialogue Season 2 Industry 4.0 has now come to a close, but we hope that you have enjoyed it as much as we did in curating this immersive series for you. Strateging will be back soon with Season 3 of the Digital Dialogues. Stay tuned on LinkedIn and all the other social media platforms for news on this. Can you please fill up your feedback form, because your feedback is extremely important to us, as this helps us to enrich future events that we will continue to bring to you. Good day. Please take care of yourself and stay safe. My name is Afshan and I would like to sign off. Thank you so much once again for your wonderful participation. See you all in the next season.